So my friends, on this third Sunday of Lent, we read about our Lord's cleansing of the temple, which John relates as this first visit during the Passover. There are 3 Passovers during John's Gospel, and so this is the first of them. And the other Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, relate the cleansing of the later cleansing of the temple that would have happened during Holy Week. But this, we have to understand rightly what the cleansing of the temple is. So in the temple, you had to offer animals to be killed, to be sacrificed. And so there were sheep and there were oxen, and so you had to offer them. And so one-stop shopping, right? We'll just sell them at the temple. It'll make it easier for the pilgrims. It's good intentions. Like, this is all good intentions. And in the temple, you certainly can't make your monetary offerings with Gentile coins, because many of those coins have the inscriptions and the images of Caesar and of other individuals that would claim divinity. And so you can't offer what would be a graven idol in the temple of the true and living God. And so if you happen to have that money, that other currency, and you need to make it your monetary offering in the temple, well then, we'll have a money exchange set up so that you can have real Jewish money to offer in the temple and not offend God by giving him pagan idols. And so this was legitimate business. The problem was, over time, it encroached. So first it would be like, okay, maybe in the neighborhood around the temple we can sell these things. But it's a little better for business if we're on the steps of the temple. And then who wants to be on steps? So we're going to actually move inside a little bit more. And the place where this actually would have happened was what was called the court of the Gentiles. So any God-fearing, non-Jewish people, like, they weren't allowed to even enter the temple, and they had to pray outside of the temple in this area set up, the courtyard of the Gentiles. And that was a great, like, hey, we Jewish people, we need to offer our sacrifices, and the Gentiles, so the sale here and the money changing was actually taking place in a spot that was meant for people to be praying. And so it had now actually encroached into the space reserved for the worship of God. This encroachment. Well, the same encroachment can happen in the temple of our souls, right? Our souls, we are temples of the living God. When we are baptized, we are consecrated to God, and we become his temple. And with perfectly good intentions, certain things in our life can encroach on this space in our hearts, in our minds, that's meant to be given to God. And they're perfect. They could be totally legitimate to begin with, but over time they take a little bit more space. So I like to play chess. It's a good game. Chess is like one of the only games that's serious and doesn't rely on luck at all, because there's no deck of cards, there's no dice. It is pure skill, right? Chess is pure skill. And so I enjoy it. But I'll find when I really, you can really go down a deep rabbit hole when you play chess, because there's so many possibilities and so many different iterations and so many different things. And what I'll find is sometimes when I'm really like, okay, I'm trying to improve my game a little bit, think about this, playing some online chess, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm going to pray, and I'm thinking, like, well, what if I moved my knight to that square? Like, no, that's encroachment now. Now something that started as a legitimate recreation has overstepped its bounds. And the same can happen, for example, with television. To watch a good TV show, a little bit of recreation at the end of the day, okay, that's great. When it takes up 8, 9, 10, 11 hours of the day, when the TV is always on, when we always have this background noise and we don't have that silence for communication with God, well, that's encroachment. That's overstepped its place in our life. And these things, it happens. It happens to all of us. It can happen frequently. I mean, I think many of us, if we were to go look at just look at the amount of stuff, ways that clutter can build up in those places that we never even look in our houses, right? That's why you need to do a good spring cleaning as spring is on its way, right? A good spring cleaning, because stuff just builds up and clutter just happens. And all of a sudden, I haven't opened that closet over there for 8 months, but it's full of junk that I'm never going to use. That's encroachment on our personal space, right? It's clutter. It happens. It happens in our souls. It happens in our souls that should be dedicated to God. And so Lent is the time to do the spring cleaning. Lent is the time to recognize that these things that had good intentions have overstepped their bounds, and that we need to take deliberate and even radical action. What Jesus does here in cleansing the temple is radical. This is the nice hippie Jesus, just peace. Jesus flips over the tables, makes a whip, and drives them out in a radical way from the temple. Because the zeal, the love for the house, the sacredness, that this space is not supposed to be a marketplace. This is reserved for the worship of God. Our souls need to have a space for the worship of God. And if other things have gotten into that space and set up shop, then you can ask them once nicely to leave, and then after that, you flip the tables, right? After that, it's time to say, no more of this. You're not welcome here anymore. This space, my heart, is for God first. Just a few quick practical ways that we do that in Lent. How do we have this ruthless radicality? Well, the first is invite Jesus in, right? Invite Jesus in. If we invite him in this Lent, if we really say, Jesus, I really want you in my heart, in my soul, come take a look around. He's going to point out, if we're really honest about it, Jesus is going to point out those things that don't belong. Many of you know our facilities manager, Evo. I love Evo. We couldn't run the parish without Evo. Evo does everything. But Evo knows that when I go take a look around sometimes, hey, Evo, let's go visit St. Maurice basement and see what's, it's oh no, bring the notepad. Father Casey's going to want us to change that and move this and do this and, fix this. And so, all right. Well, when we invite Jesus in even more to our souls, right? Jesus is going to take a look. Oh, hey, that doesn't really belong. Do you really need that? That probably shouldn't be here. We invite Jesus in to our soul, right? Jesus will cleanse the temple of our soul if we invite him in and if we give him permission, right? If we invite our Lord into our life, he'll easily point out the things that need to go, and he'll help us get rid of them. Let me help you out. I'll get that out of here for you. The second we read about in the first reading, the second way to do this, is to just get back to the basics of the 10 Commandments, right? Are there things in our hearts that are contrary to the 10 Commandments? Particularly that first commandment. I, the Lord your God, brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. That's for each one of us when we were baptized. We are brought out of the slavery to sin. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall have no other gods besides me. Are there other gods in my life? Are there other individuals, persons, activities, things, comforts in my life that, if I'm honest, are more important than God? And if yes, well, you can't have false gods, right? Jesus says in the gospel, you cannot worship God and money, is an example, right? God and mammon. You cannot, it's one or the other. And are there other things in our lives that we set up as these false gods? As well as the other, just obeying the other commandments. They're meant to be kind of the safety net that keep us in line, right? Don't take the name of the Lord in vain, because we have a living relationship and we don't abuse the Lord's name and our ability to call upon him. We keep holy the Lord's Day, right? Sunday is a day dedicated to God. And so we keep it holy. And particularly if work, if sports, if hobbies want to take the place of Sunday, like, no, you must do this on a Sunday, well, that's encroachment. That's taking the place of something that ought to be. Today, Sunday is God's day. He gets a day every week, and everything else has to take a back seat. And so we need to be very honest about that and keep holy the Lord's Day, honoring father and mother, not killing, not committing adultery, not stealing, not bearing false witness, not coveting. These are the things that help us identify what's getting in the way, what's breaking our relationship. And so we need to keep the commandments, right? Keeping the commandments is the safe way to live. But then we got to go even more than that. And that's what we get in our second reading, that St. Paul preaches Christ crucified, that Jesus died for my sins. And so the cross, we, each of us, embrace the cross of Jesus Christ. And so we don't just give up sins, but we even can give up good things. We can choose certain sacrifices that help us keep that temple area clear of any encroachment, right? We kind of are, by choosing generous sacrifices, we clear out the space. And so, my friends, as we go through this Lent, we really need to be focused on how we keep holy the temple of the Lord that each of us is. We are God's temple, every single one of us. Jesus wants this Lent to help cleanse us of the things that have encroached, again, maybe with perfectly good motivations, but things that have gotten out of place and gotten in the way. So let's each of us invite our Lord in, and let's use the cross and the generosity of making sacrifices, and as well the safety net of the commandments to help us really keep on the narrow path, following our Lord Jesus in this way, so that having cleansed our temple, the power and the glory of God may richly dwell in each one of us.